Stakeholders in the broadcast industry are calling for the enactment of a bill that will regulate the practice of broadcasting in Nigeria. The proposed bill, titled Bill for an Act to provide for the regulation and conduct of the practice of broadcasting profession in Nigeria, is aimed at establishing the Broadcasting Practitioners Council. And veterans and practitioners in the broadcast industry say the establishment of the Broadcasting Practitioners Council will enhance the qualifications to practice, regulate membership, supervision of institutions, and the conduct of examinations that will lead to membership, privileges of registered persons and offences by unregistered persons, establishment of disciplinary committee and investigation panel.
All we are trying to do is a distinct that today there is the digital broadcasters who pop up minute by minute, second by second, and most of the time distorting the professionalism of what we're doing. So we just wanted to be registered like NBA, NIPR, and we are complementary to the laws guarding the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, not opposed to.
This is NBC's position and observations. Number one, we observe that the bill intends to regulate the practice of broadcasting profession in Nigeria. Therefore, the Commission recommends that there is no need for the bill because there cannot be two regulatory bodies governing or regulating one profession.
We need to look at a bill that is talking about how broadcasters can regulate themselves, not how public bodies can regulate themselves. And those public bodies should remember too that the media is no longer owned by government alone. When in those days government had a monopoly, anything could be done. So for me, all that NBC has said this morning is quite good. The only difference is that they are probably not aware that when events overtake the past, you look at ways of updating the old system. For example, when the NTA was established, it was the only authority in broadcasting in Nigeria. When the NBC now came up in 1992, it was giving powers to now regulate the NTA that had been a monopoly. And so the NTA law was amended accordingly. There is nothing wrong in amending the NBC Act. There is nothing wrong with it. In fact, it is better to do so.
It is not yet all over until it is all over. But I want to assure you that whatever questions that may be asked, we are equal to the task. And this bill will be pursued to its final bus stop. And all the observations made here, I've seen it. I want to assure everybody that we shall take a very serious look at them and do the necessary thing.
All right, let's talk more on this proposed bill. We have in the studio former Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission, Armstrong Idachaba. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight tonight. Well, you heard the former DG there say that there's nothing wrong in amending the NBC Act. What exactly are the issues that the NBC has against this proposed?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And let me say it's nice to speak with you after a rather interesting session you had with Patrick Obayabo. and I saw I noticed you had a swell time. Now you're talking about your industry. Yes, I think it's interesting, and I thank you for playing back some of the discourse at the hearing. I think it more or less articulates the viewpoints, and if you look at it closely, you will find out that there's really no point of divergence. It's just that people probably were not listening to themselves. Why is there a need for a bill for broadcast practitioners when there is an existing bill for the broadcast industry? I think that's the question. Right? Is the profession not part of the industry? Certainly the profession is part of the industry, key element of the industry, the performing ambit of the industry, if you are to say. And broadcasting, is not just limited to just a particular profession. There are other disciplines. It's multi-dimensional. It's interdisciplinary. You have components like advertising. You have content creators. You have engineers, people who may not be willing to be affiliated or members of an association that calls itself Association of Broadcasters. So you can see that the industry is bigger, essentially, than just the profession. And there are a lot of issues in broadcasting. There are spectrum issues. There are licensing issues. You know, there are even diplomatic issues, cultural exchange issues, you know, and issues about evolving technology. You know, so it's an industry that's driven from all sides. And that's why you need a holistic regulatory agency that's already been created in the wisdom of government since 1992. However, I know from experience that there's a gap, there's a lacuna in terms of the organic structure of the industry. And the loose point basically has been with the area of the professionals. As we speak, the NBC's major headache is with getting professionals to act according to their own ethics. And the question I keep asking, even at the time when I was in NBC, is how much does the guild, does the professional bracket do, you know, to file in the professionals in terms of discipline? And there are myriad of problems that are confronting the profession of broadcasting. Quacks, for instance. Are you able to deal with it? Where are they coming from? The issue of certification. Who is a broadcaster? Who is not a broadcaster? You don't expect the regulator to deal with those issues. Issues of unpaid salaries that happen in many of these broadcast institutions.
Who should be dealing with those issues?
Absolutely. Where in reasonable professional groups, the guilds and the associations deal with it. They are more able to protect their own industry. They are more able to protect and create a sphere, you know, of discipline and respectability behind what they do as core professionals.
Well, isn't that the argument for of those who are for this society, the Society of Nigeria Broadcasters, which is the naughty issue here? They say it's a meeting point for the professionals. We have this in other professions such as lawyers, we have the NBA. For the doctors, medical profession, we have the NMA, we have the CIPM for, you know, the bankers. So why can't we have a Society of Nigeria Broadcasters?
Fantastic, you quite articulated on point. Yes, it is important, like I said, that the associations come together to form a guild, to form an association, a society to protect their business. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like you said, there's a society for engineers, right? Principally set up to protect, and key thing is welfare of practitioners. Any way you look at it, right? And then they now come in with the ethical components, which is also supposed to bring integrity, professionalism, and credibility to the profession. However, you'll find out from many of those examples we have seen that does not disallow or negate the point that there must be an industry regulator, right? Among the engineers, they have the Society of Engineers, but yes, there's COREN. There's the Council for the Regulation of Engineers, right? There's the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. There's the Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria, right? There's the Bar Association, right? But the Bar Association is also regulated somehow by statute, you know, by the Legal Practitioners Act. You get the point?
Yeah.
So all these professions have their own society, right? But they have a regulatory agency, right, that is created by government that oversees the totality of the ramification of activity of that.
Okay, so that we don't get it confused. Are you against the Society of Nigeria Broadcasters existing alongside the NBC? Or you're saying they can't both? What exactly is the point here? What's the argument here?
Now, the point for me,
yes,
as someone who's been behind broadcast policy over the years and who has seen some of these rules to work, the point is that there has to be a synergy, there has to be a convergence, right? There is an existing regulatory agency. You can't have two regulatory agencies for one industry. It's acrimonious.
Right.
So there's one established by law since 1992. All the parliament needs to do in their wisdom is to get the society to be more relevant in the formulation or in the activity of the existing law. And truthfully, there's a problem. If you look at the composition of the NBC, you know, as a regulatory agency, you are likely to see representative of the DSS, representative of the Ministry of Information and Culture, representative of the academia. The societies that are key and operational to broadcasting are not represented. So there is the need to look at the composition of the commission. If you want for purpose of inclusiveness.
What would that ideal NBC be? And do you think the NBC as a regulator really has enough independence? Because there's this wide perception that the NBC is, to a large extent, a tool, for political interference.
Now, I think these are some of the symptoms, basically. That is why you find that the broadcasters are thinking, and it is a bit reflective of the thoughts of people like my boss, Tony Iradia, probably, that the regulator is not totally representative of the liberties that are inherent, in journalism. And that is because by composition of the NBC board, of course, it does appear that the practitioners are not properly represented. And if you look at the other councils, that is the prototype. What happens is that it is a modicum of self-regulation in the sense that even as it's set up by government, the practitioners are well represented in good numbers. So that at the time of policy making, at the time of decision taking, or at the time of the processes, even for sanction, the industry also participates in the process. So that way you erode or you eliminate suspicion, you make it more inclusive, and then there's a high degree of believability and acceptability. So far.
So what exactly will it take? Let me ask that question again. What will it take to strengthen the NBC as a regulator of the broadcast industry?
Simple. The parliament has to take the views of the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters, because what I see is a cry for exclusiveness. I mean, that they needed to be included. And for you to be included doesn't mean that you repeal an existing regulatory statute. Right? So the National Assembly has to aggregate their views, take note of it, and take a proper look at the NBC Act, and understand, like I've said, that there is more, to the industry than just professional practice. Professional practice is about the welfare of the professionals, it's about ethics, which are also largely well provided for in the broadcasting code. It may interest you to know that even now, when the NBC wants to work on the broadcasting code, it organizes a stakeholder session where the broadcasters themselves, the professionals, also participate. But where the final decision is to be taken, probably, they are not there. So you need to give them that level of confidence that they are part of the policy decision-making process, even the process of adjudication when it comes to certain critical decisions. And you can't do that by repealing the NBC Act. You can only do it by accommodating the positions of Society of Nigerian Broadcasters, and so as possibly other critical stakeholders.
One thing is certain, I mean, those for or against agree there is a problem that needs to be solved. It's how we get there, that's the problem at the moment. Right. Thank you so much. Former Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission, the NBC, Armstrong Idachaba, for being on the news with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys. I wish you well.